So, I'm going to sing some songs. We have to sing, these are called Kumeyaay songs. Kumeyaay means people. It's our history, stories, our perspective. It's in our language. And we always want to try to have a language in our things. If not, it doesn't have the same meaning and the same spirit, the same originality. So we always want to try to have a language and songs when we're having something. And like I said, these songs are our history and it's our perspective. And they touch on a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects of how people live and interacted with one another. They're about different kinds of people. But there's a little part in these songs that talks about the original interactions with Europeans and us. A lot of those weren't too good. They talk about, some of the songs talk about them fighting us and pursuing us and capturing us. And the word that they use nowadays is dehumanized. So they took them away from their homes and they cut their hair. They said that they were less than and they were dirty and they smelled. So they were doing that in order to control us and to change us. But that's a part of our history. And a lot of things happen after that. But so, like I said, these songs talk about a lot of different things, but there's a part in there where it talks about that. So I'm going to go ahead and sing about that. So it talks about Mati Me means they're crying. Tamuka means they're cutting their hair. Shuk means they smell. And then it talks about them leaving. It says, wow, going. Sakan means they're getting away, they're fleeing. And then Yipmal means they're not listening, they're not taking it anymore, they're going. And then it talks about why you means they're coming. These soldiers, they're going after them, they're pursuing them. Wanya, you means Wanya's road. Around here they say Unya means road. You, they're coming. That's what I'm going to be singing about. So, Sakan means they're going, they're trying to get away, they're fleeing. Sakan, you're going to hear that in there. Wow, they're going. Yeah, yo, these are on the road. Give them knowledge, they're not listening, complying, they're not feeling it anymore. Last one is white. They're like soldiers or warriors. They're coming. Well, yeah, they're coming down the road. They're going after them. Because of people, they actively resisted. They tried to get away. But eventually they became part of the system. They were made to be part of the system, the new way, the change. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, these are history, and why we have to keep talking about these things. They say if we don't know our history, then we're going to repeat it, and we want to try to avoid those same kinds of things. If we're a unique, distinct people, we have to watch for those things if they might be coming. We have to be aware of them. So what might happen. This is all supposed to be educational. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully we can keep being educated, keeping aware of things.
Thank you. Thank you to our dancers. See this picture right here? They're about your age. They took them from their families and did what Daniel was just singing about. Cut their hair, told them they were less than. There's a new way for you. You cannot practice your beliefs or your religion or anything that was taught to you for tens of thousands of years anymore. That's what that looks like. That's what institutions do. They instill things in you that have nothing to do with the true self of who you are. That's what these institutions are doing now. And even worse, these institutions are covering all this stuff up. They're digging up remains and artifacts, and they're asking us to send you, our youth, to them so they can help you. My name is Steven Banegas, by the way. I'm from this reservation. I'm also the spokesperson for the 12 Kumeyaay bands that have to do with repatriation of remains and artifacts. We've been doing it for 30 years. We've been asking for these institutions to follow these laws. Most of you, maybe your parents were your age when we started this stuff. Not much has changed. That's why we're doing this today. Today is, or this month is Genocide Awareness Month. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. But I've been waiting for these institutions, or this government, or the local government, or anybody to mention that. And I don't know if you guys have covered genocide at your age, or is it for the next year?
That'll be high school.
High school. So what grade is this?
This is 7th grade.
Never too late to start. Never too late to start. If you don't know history, you're destined to repeat it. I couldn't imagine somebody coming to my house and taking my children. I couldn't imagine how I would feel and how worried I would be and how sick I would be. Turning them into little butlers and little nurses and little housekeepers, telling them they're dirty, telling them they're less than. I come here today to ask for a change in that way of thinking, from the top down, from the elected officials down. They need to change their way of thinking. These institutions have not changed their way of thinking. As a matter of fact, they have gotten worse over the years. They have denied us our existence. They have denied us our place to worship. They have denied us our language. They will not even do a land acknowledgement like they said they would, which is not much. There's still pushback on that. I can't thank you guys enough for being here, allowing these children to be here. We're going to make a change. Maybe not in my time, but in your time. It's up to us to give you this information. And by the way, we're going to be talking about genocide and what that looks like. That's what it looks like. When the interlopers got here by boat, this is what was thriving here for 100 to 130, maybe 150,000 years. All having their own language, their own creation story, all surviving, living and thriving as brothers and sisters and neighbors. Sure, there were skirmishes. Sure, we fought. But we overcame those. And we still allowed every one of these, as God intended, to be in existence with us. We could share. We knew how to get along. We, in fact, showed those interlopers. When they got to this shore, we showed them how to take care of one another. She took care of them, directed them, helped them survive, helped them eat and prosper. In 500 years, where we're sitting right now is a pin right here. That's what genocide looks like. But when you hear that term, know that we were once flourishing. And by the way, the state of California brags that it's the world's 5th largest economy. Makes a lot of money, generates a lot of funds, creates a lot of things, all because they believe they have a right to it. All because of this. Beware. Been carrying this with me for 30 years, hoping to see a change. And it is with great relief and great honor that I pass it on to you. It's yours now. If you want to know how to sing and dance, you can't go to these institutions. If you want to know what they're singing about, or why it's important, or where they did it, and why, and how long, you can't go to these institutions. You have to come to the people. Is there any questions? Or anybody from Zoom? Anybody from the audience got anything to say? Too much? That's how effective that is. We can't find our voice. That was over 100 years ago. Your grandparents, great-grandparents, mine. Kenny, Chairman Hamul, former Chairman Hamul, has been fighting this stuff all his life. He's a Vietnam veteran. Come to lead his people just so they could survive in this day and age. Tony, Eva, Mesa Grande. We get all these laws passed, and we think, oh yeah, there's a change. 98% of the time, what those laws allow us to do, is buy this back. We have to buy it back. We have to pay to have an existence here. The 7th grade, 8th grade, do you know any other country that does that? No. If there is one, please let us know. This is yours. This is what those songs are talking about. We're not going to hear it anymore. We're going to get on the path and go back where we have a right to free and exist. Any questions? How about Zoom? Again, we put this out to a lot of news media and news feeds so they could cover this. But as you see, it's just us. This humble little museum that has been trying to put together our creation story and our tale of how we got here, what's important to us, and how it's important that we hand things down, and how you learn how to dance and sing and become men and women? Because pretty soon, you'll be making decisions. No questions? We put out a few statements here. We'd like the adults to get them, or anybody can get them and read them. UCSD is the biggest violator of, or one of the biggest violators of our existence, our religion, our beliefs, and our integrity.
Do you mean the University of
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Can you say your name and then?
Lenny Reed. What do you mean by the UCSD? Do you mean the University of California? San Diego?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going there this weekend. The rec was like, I was going there this weekend because they signed up this thing called Dream the Impossible.
Oh, so it's like a recruitment, like to introduce.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Rec department, rec to
Yeah, the rec.
Can you inform us of why you say that UCSD is a violator? I want to know, you know.
Why they do it?
What are they doing
What are they doing?
or not doing?
How are they a biggest,
Go ahead.
how are they a biggest violator to our people?
19. Go ahead.
UCSD.
In 1993 or 2, Congress passed a law called Native American Graves and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA. That law requires them to put together a committee and to take an inventory of all the artifacts and remains that they had and then give it to the local tribes, their words, not mine, tribes, so that we could go through it and see what they had under this law, filed to get it back to us. All it had to do was be connected to the grave or to the funeral or funerary artifacts. UCSD, we had a meeting with them 27 years ago down the road at one of our halls. They said this: these are not yours. They are too old. We don't have anything of yours. And if you had a song, a poem, or a dance that tied you to the ocean, we would listen to you. We were offended, we laughed, and we said, get out of here. We have this law now. Now, I talk about our creation story. It comes from the ocean. We have a tie to that ocean. This institution, this multi-billion-dollar institution, didn't know that or didn't care, or just decided to not listen, right? Years later, a few years later, they are sued by Professor White to not repatriate any remains. The lawsuit comes in our favor. They're supposed to repatriate remains. So we think we have a victory. Now, not only do they have to admit that these are our ancestors, that we have a right to this, that we know what we're talking about, they have to turn all these things that some of those professors are building their career on. Are you with me so far? One of the professors takes some of those remains, body parts, ancestral remains, and hides them. When we call them out on it, when one of the, Professor Fox from UCSD says, hey, there's human remains in here, we inquired about them because they had told us they had repatriated everything. And we said, no, we have evidence that you do not, you still are holding them. The Professor Schoeninger says, these aren't yours. In fact, tells one of her students to take those remains out of her lab because she's retiring and take them to Purdue, some other university. And we said, wait a minute, that's a violation of the law. What are you doing? We have this law now. We sit with the chancellor and the vice chancellor on a number of occasions. They assured us that they were going to do everything they could. And as a plug, they said, make sure you bring your children to this school. Make sure that we're not getting enough Indian children, enough original people in this school. Why is that? So we asked them, what are you going to do to punish this professor to make sure it doesn't happen again? I don't know. I don't know, they said. These guys aren't just regular folks. They're PhDs. They've been doing this for a long time. Again, we asked them, are you going to censor? Are you going to cut her pay? What are you going to do? We don't know. She's so old. She wants to retire. And it's bad enough that she has to deal with you people. That should be punishment enough. To this day, the day of and Genocide Awareness Month, we still don't know what they're going to do. I have not heard what we want to hear. This will never happen again. Remember now, they're the very first ones we sat with, and they said, we don't have any of yours. It doesn't belong to you. As the campus is being built, it's on one of the most richest sites in the country, if not the world. There's remains, there's artifacts there's graveyards, and they just keep digging it up. We can't trust them. So when we say they're the main violators of this, they'll tell us, no, we're working on it. We want you to come and sit at the table. But at the same time, they're thumbing their nose at this law. Now there was a chairwoman from Hamul just met with some senators to have this law pushed more for these institutions. That's what we have to go through. This law is on the books. It's been on there for 30 years, and there's a new state law. What is it, AB 275, that deals specifically with these institutions. They still can't do it. So passing laws and ignoring them when it doesn't benefit them or us, I call that a violation. I call that dereliction of duty, or just outright what Daniel talked about. We don't matter to them anymore. We've been through this process. They chased us, cut our hair, told us we were dirty and less than. That's how we're being treated today, right now. Right now. That's how that institution is treating us. That's why I call them the violators. That's why I say they need to change things. They need to put people in there that have a heart or that have a sense of what's doing right. I cannot tell you how offended I was dealing with that institution. Cannot tell you. Cannot. The words escape me. But if you do not want to live through this again, or your children, or lose even what little we have, and by the way, this is still our land. This is still us. We have never traded, ceded, or had a treaty with the United States to say otherwise. We're still waiting for that treaty to come. Again, that's probably something else in another year you guys are going to get to. I hope you do. Is there any more questions? Does that clear it up? UCSD right now is getting ready to build more housing for students. They're going to hit remains and artifacts. They have to. They're going to. They're going to spend upwards of what, $2 billion? billion with a B, to bring more students in, to charge them more money, all on land that was gifted to them, that they had just, here, take it, build this empire, pushing your and my ancestors out of there. That's why we're here where we are. You go to some of our reservations, they're out in the hills. My brothers and sisters from Sequan, from San Isabel, Mesa Grande, take you an hour from here to get to their tribal office. That's out in the hills. Any more questions?
8th graders, do you guys know where UCSD is? Where you study in 8th grade, what place? What's your art? What place? La Jolla, that's where UCSD is, so everything Steve's talking about, what we talked about in lower class, access to that space. Gone, all of that space. And all somebody else is taking it.
Anything come from Zoom yet? I thought we had a question. Nope.
She's on there.
People are zooming in from other areas, so if we get a question or if they want to know something. Is there any more questions? Thanks for the question. It's a good question. I didn't know I skimmed through that so fast. But you need to know. They owe you. This institution owes you. Not just that one, others too. They owe you an education. They owe you. This isn't a free gift. Look at all that they're claiming. And by the way, we're going to ask for land back under our control in that area so we can process these remains and artifacts professionally, cleanly, and honestly, not letting some institution or let some professor build their career on it, because that's what's happening. Myself and my brother Junior Cuero is chairman, former chairman of Campo. We've been dealing with this for 28, 29 years, something like that. Not much has changed. So now that's why we're doing these things. And by the way, why do we have to do it? Why do we have to spend money from a humble budget? Why aren't these institutions who got millions, tens of millions of dollars set aside for media, talking about genocide, talking about what they can do to make things right? Does anybody know that question?
They don't care.
They don't care. It wouldn't benefit them. You can Google Genocide Awareness Month. You can Google that school. They'll tell you about the Jews, they'll tell you about the Armenians, whoever else went through horrific things. All on land. All on land. In our territory. On the bones of our ancestors. All on the area that we held sacred where we used to practice our religion and our belief. All on land. But they won't spend a dime. They won't spend a dime apologizing and trying to rectify it. In 2019, on June 17th, the governor of this great, what they're calling the state of California now, admitted that term genocide. It is nothing less than. He admitted it. He did what the Mossad couldn't get the Germans to do during the trials of World War II. Every one of them, well, I was only following orders. I was doing what I was told. He killed, exterminated millions of people. But this guy, Governor Newsom, flat out admitted it. Admitted the horrific thing that happened here. They put a bounty on the heads of most of these kids' parents and grandparents. You know what a bounty is? Bring me the head or the hair and I'll give you X amount of dollars. Any more questions?
Why did they make this a NAGPRA law? Was it something that somebody did?
I think it was to make us feel good. Remember now, we're part of this political system. Myself, Chairman Cuero, Chairman Mesa, we all put money towards representatives in this system. Every one of our nations, every one of our bands have put money to get a representative to talk about our issues, our problems, our position. And none of them, not a one of them, look like me or either of these chairmen. Not a one of them, parents or grandparents, went through this. And by the way, when they pass a law and they do nothing, it doesn't benefit, it's a good question. Why? Part of the punishment, if you don't follow NAGPRA, is they will cut all your federal funds. They will take them away. We asked them 10 years ago, we asked them 5 years ago, and we asked them last week. Point us to one institution that has felt the lash of this law. Does it work? What happens when you cut their federal funding? Still waiting for a response. Still waiting to say, oh yeah, this is what happens. But now we're sending, or some of our elected officials are going up there, pressing them, reminding them, these are your laws. These were sold to us, a bill of goods on how to take care of things. Still waiting. Just like we're waiting for these institutions to talk about genocide, talk about the land that they're on, talk about the relationship they have with. We're still here. You still heard some songs. Okay. Anybody see or hear those songs before? Nah. It's a mystery to you. It's strange. The language that runs in your DNA and your blood, strange to you. That's why they're the violators. That's why. Any more questions? Yep. Daniel.
Why do you think NAGPRA is important for Indians?
It's important. It forced us to learn how to come together again. It forced us to get together. Prior to that, if I went down to, say, Museum of Us, which held remains, and by the way, they don't have a place, it's called a repository where it's climate controlled, there's no, bugs or anything getting to these remains, because these are human beings. We would go down there, myself and Chairman Cuero, former chairman, and ask them. And all the docent or anybody that worked the cash register, or anybody that happened to be there on hand would say this. Well, we just talked to somebody, your sister tribe, that's the term they use, people next door to you, and they said it was okay. They said, you're not violating anything. So we go talk to our sister tribe, and they would say, well, no, they didn't ask me about that. There's 12 of us now. Well, actually, 13, I guess, huh? One non-federally recognized in this area. Anyway, what we said is we're going to go back to our respective leadership, get a resolution, and say we are permitted to talk about this, and they agreed. So how it worked is like, okay, now we've got our stuff together. We go as a collective, as a nation, not as a bunch of split up bands, but as a nation, and request this stuff. You must follow this law now. We've done our part. But it was so weak, like I said, any docent or anybody that happened to be on the floor could just say, no, this ain't yours. We're offended again, right? So now we retool and come back and we start looking at how are we going to make this possible, or how is it going to benefit us? And we're still doing that, by the way. But we did get some recognition on some things. It's not all bad. Some areas will repatriate, some areas will listen to us, some areas will respect and understand. But most areas won't. They don't have to. There's no law that, like I said, or there is a law, but it's just never enacted. It's never, excuse me?
Enforced.
It's never enforced. Never.
Why don't you prosecute?
If we had the money, if we had the senators on our side, like hopefully we get, we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to. But again, we have to spend money on things that they should be doing just because they're an institution of higher learning and to do the right thing. But instead, what we have to do, like Campo, Hamul, San Isabel, Mesa Grande, San Pasqual, we have to take money from our education, our housing, our roads, our water, our sewer, our schools, our medical, our position. We'd have to take money from that and invest it in this. And each one of those things that I talked about are on the hearts and minds of every one of our children. Every day. Every day. So you begin to see how they think, we'll get to it. We'll find it. But right now, we've got to make sure everybody has a home. Everybody's that's safe, so on and so forth. Why don't we sue them? Better yet, why don't they put one of you or us through that system so that you can come back and say, now I know how this works. I'm going to take care of it. But we've been waiting for that for a long time, 27 years, 28 years. Maybe we will have to find money and take it, sacrifice yet again, right? Yet again, to take on the world's 5th largest economy from a man who said, it's genocide. It's genocide. And yet we still have to go through that system. Maybe we might just have to remind them of what genocide is and what it means and how devastating it is. And for him to say that at his position, why haven't we, okay, we're going to hold you to that. You can Google it and you can see the whole speech he does. I think it's, was it June 17, 2019? Governor admits genocide. If you guys ever got a little time or interest. Or maybe the teacher can do it. Give him some homework for a change. Is there any questions? Anybody else want to speak? I thank you for coming. Be careful. Take care. Listen to your parents and the older ones. They're not trying to hurt you. They're only trying to help you. They're only trying to guide you. Nobody here anyway wants to run you afoul or to take you away from me. But we can't hold them accountable if they don't know. Right? They don't know. Anything from Zoom yet? Nope.
She's listening.
Okay, let me pose a question to them. What are they going to do about this now that it's been brought to the forefront? Are they going to investigate? We have some information they can click on and find out where we are with this. We have some paperwork that they can read and put to their listening audience or reading audience, whatever they have. We can work together. This time of I don't know and educate me has to come to an end. It has to come to an end. We cannot tolerate that anymore. Educate me. That is the dumbest and weakest statement I've heard from leaders of institutions down to the bummiest person at a cafe restaurant. Educate me. So now we're gonna do that. And by the way, when we get to the point where we have to sue them, that's going to be an education too. Any questions? Anybody? Anything? None. None. Make sure you read the demands we've made for UCSD, please. At least look at that. Nothing? Junior, you want to close it out? We're going to end it. Like I said, we always start a good path, but we always close it off. This is my brother, my good friend, Chairman Cuero Campo. He's been singing, doing this, practicing his spirituality all his life. His whole life started out as important to him. Nurturing it, giving what he can. It's not easy. It's not easy to do this. It requires you to go when people need you, when the community needs you, you go. You don't question that. Because usually it's during a time when things are doing too good. I encourage everybody from the students to their teachers to the families and the institutions to come and look at our creation story. It's 20 minutes long. It's a snapshot or version of a 4-day ceremony that took 4 days to do, requiring a lot of people, a lot of resources, and a lot of energy, and a lot of spirituality. It took 4 days, and we've managed to chunk it down to 20 minutes. So I don't know if your school, if your class has got a chance to do it. Every one of the teachers should sit there and watch that at least once. Every one of them should know that where they live, and where they come from, and what they're doing here. That's been here from the beginning of time. That's what we believe. We were put here by that, in this paradise. What we're giving the teachers and the educators, a view from the shore, not from the ship. Like Daniel's talked about or sang about. Not going to hear it anymore. Not going to listen to it anymore. You want to do it, Darren Jr.? Come on. Open it up, if anybody wants to.
Good morning. My name is Bernice Pipa. I'm a tribal member from the Ipai Nation of San Isabel. And I apologize for being late this morning. I had a long trip to get here. But I would like to say a few words to you all that are here, since you are here and you are young people. And for the ones that have been with KCRC over the years, you know, we've done a lot of work to repatriate our ancestors and lay them back to rest. It's been a little over 30 years since I've been involved with this committee. And, you know, the work we've done over the years, I've learned a lot from. And what I've learned is that no matter where you dig in San Diego County, parts of Riverside, parts of Imperial, you're gonna find our ancestors there. You're gonna find villages, you're gonna find artifacts, you're gonna find human remains. And when we do that, we treat it as if somebody died, because there's no ceremony to rebury our ancestors. So when we find human remains, when they're returned to us, or we go and get them and bring them back, you know, it's as if one of our relatives passed away. So we take them to a reservation that accepts them, we put them in the ground, we cover them up, we sing some songs, we pray, we have a meal, and then we go about our lives and, you know, continue to do this over and over again. And recently I went to a site in Poway where they dug up some relatives, and they're sitting in our facility now waiting to be reburied. And it made me really sad, because a lot of these villages where they're digging up the ancestors, they're erasing our footprint, you know, and we know this because people want homes, people have, you know, buying land. It's, you know, their right to own it. And then what happens when there's a village there, like Poway? The whole town of Poway, or the city of Poway, is a village. So no matter where you dig there, human remains are high, that it's really high that you're gonna find human remains there. So, you know, with all these projects going on, you know, they found these remains, and it wasn't just one set, it wasn't just two sets, it was 4 sets of human remains on a plot down there in Poway. And so we got to thinking about, you know, I worked with my son down at Sequan, and he's a tribal monitor, and we got to thinking about the process of when there's projects in the city and on these lands, there's a notice that comes out, and then there's a meeting, a scoping meeting. And, you know, a lot of times we don't have the time, or the letters don't get to us, and these meetings happen without us. And most of the time, nobody will say, no, don't do it, don't build there, don't develop it, you know, because of the money that's involved. And so, you know, I just want to, you know, talk a little bit about that, because, you know, the rest of the land in Poway, as you look around Poway, that isn't developed, it's not developed for a reason. You know, there is a high chance of human remains or a village being there. And, you know, you're probably wondering why I'm just bringing up Poway, but it's all over. You know, it could be Escondido, it could be Santee, it could be Lakeside, Alpine, you know, Ramona, and then further north, San Marcos, Oceanside, you know, all these towns that we're familiar with. So, you know, you young people that are in school now, I encourage you to think about, you know, the type of work you're going to go into, because we need archaeologists, and we need tribal monitors, and we need people that are going to say no to these projects and help us preserve the rest of the lands that we have. And I think it's going to take, you know, an act of changing the laws to do this, and I'm not sure, but we've done it before in the past with KCRC. And, you know, I had an attorney tell me, well, if you don't say yes to them, they'll just find somebody else. So that made me stop and think about how that law needs to be changed, and that process needs to be changed. So, you know, these are things to think about, and I'm only bringing it up because it just happened last week. And, you know, you guys are the future, and there's a lot of people in this room that are always looking, to find work that's meaningful or that know how to do this work that is meaningful to the Kumeyaay Nation. And, I just want to encourage you guys to look into more and to, decide what kind of work you want to do, because we need help, As a Kumeyaay Nation, we're shrinking our footprint because of all this development that's going on. And, they just treat us like, oh, well, we'll just ignore them and maybe they'll go away. That's how it feels sometimes, especially with some of the universities. And, recently, KCRC is working towards, just doing the best that we can to repatriate these remains, and a lot of things have happened. So I just want to let you guys know that much. And, thanks Steve Banegas for the work that he's done over the years. It's hard, it's not easy to always be on the road and traveling around to meetings and doing these things, but he was asked by one of the elders. And I'm not quite an elder yet, but I'm, 50 plus. I'll put it at that. So I'm asking you all that are Kumeyaay, that do have an interest, the young people, ask your parents, ask your grandparents, ask your aunties and uncles. Come up to me and talk to me, or Steve, or Junior, Tony, Lisa Kumper here that does a lot of work, and Eva that works with the universities and, comes out to help us. And the museum people, they know a lot here in Barona. They've been doing this for a while. And, when I started, Amanda was a young girl. She was a teenager, and now she's a mom. And my daughter was a baby, and now she's, I won't tell your age, but, she's grown up. So it goes fast. And, we need people, like I said, and so have that conversation with us and have that dialogue with somebody so that you understand if you don't know. Because when I first started doing this, I didn't understand it. I just knew that an elder had came, and then Steve had came to the tribal office and said, we need help. So I reached out and I said, how can I help? And 30 years later, we're still doing this, and we're still trying to protect what is ours. And, what happened to us as far as the genocide, if we recognize it, then we can heal from it, There's a lot that goes into the history of our people. And a lot of times they try to segregate us, like, you're Barona and I'm San Isabel, and, you're Mesa Grande and you're Campo. But really, we're all the same. We're one people, and we're the Kumeyaay Nation. So I just want to make that statement. And hopefully, somebody in this crowd today will understand it and think about it, and then come forward and step forward to help. Because you guys are young, There's a purpose out there for you, and if you're looking for it, come talk to us. We need your help. We need your support, and, you are the future of who will be taking care of the Kumeyaay Nation when we're no longer here, because the elders that asked us to do this, they're no longer here. And then as time went by, people started leaving us on the committee, and, they did a lot of good things while they were here, for us. That's why we still have the little bit that we have. So I just want to say that much, and say thank you for you guys taking your time to come and listen to what we had to say here today. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I got this.
Make sure you guys meet with Laura so you can use this. We're taping you guys.
Hi, my name's Tony Trujillo. I'm from Mesa Grande. I don't know how much these children know about our creation, but when I hear about repatriation and, like Bernice said, like many people have said actually, we don't have a ceremony for the remains of the ancestors that we have. we don't have a ceremony for when they're dug back up. And every time I hear about this, I've even been to a couple of doings where we tried our best to rest these ancestors of ours. And every time I go around that stuff, I always think about our creation. And we had one of our deities. His uncle was killed, and he went back, and he knew where his uncle was at, and I want to say his toe was sticking out of the ground. He had powers, and so what he wanted to do is he missed his uncle. He wanted to bring him back to life, and so he could do this, and they knew what he was going to do, and they told him, "You leave that man where he is. Don't try to bring him back to life. You leave him right there. Because if you don't, it's allbad.com. Leave him right there." And so he listened. We try to honor our creation. We try to take these things that are given to us and honor them, because we have been indoctrinated. We have been taught to think a certain way. The more that we get the information to our children, ourselves, whoever, we share with each other, we try to learn about ourselves. And it's very important in this ethos. When we honor that, our creation, and we leave those dead people where they're at, we're supposed to. These institutions dig them up, and then we're lost. We don't have anything that we can do to try and put them to rest, There's other people, other races, nations. I always think to myself when these people get a hold of Egyptians come to mind too. Let's just leave them alone and let them rest. But for some reason, these people can keep, they can keep our ancestors' remains, and why? That's. And so I really enjoy listening to what the repatriation people have done. Bernice Jr. and Steve, my sister, everybody that's involved in this. I really like to hear that. And I've read some paperwork, and it seems hopeful. But they said they're not just gonna give it to you. We gotta fight for it. So. When you put these institutions on Front Street, it's real interesting to see how or what they're going to do to try to make things right. That's all I got. Thank you.
Anybody else? You want to plug the museum, what your calendar is, and what you have for the communities, what's out there? Allegedly, there's some media here, maybe spark an interest. Introduce Lori Headley. She's Egan Headley. She's the director of our museum. 3-4 years ago, her and I sat down and wanted to change things. What can we do to bring awareness to these things? How can we make a difference? And one of the things, it took us, like I said, 2, 3, maybe almost 4 years to, 1, decide, and 2, to make the effort to put our creation story, which is, like I said, 4 days, it's multiple people, not one person knew it. There's multiple songs, there's multiple areas. It was done for a certain time of year, for a certain for the people. So we knew we were working with something that was very sacred, but it was also very necessary. So it's not complete, but I want to introduce you to, this is Headley, who is a major force behind that. So make sure you go see that.
Hi everybody. So I'm glad my 7th and 8th graders are here from culture class. And I hope that this brings this, everything we've been talking about in class, I hope it feels very real this morning to you. These are real people, real advocates for their community and their people. It's not just me talking in class, right? I'm trying to share with all of you the history that has occurred in this land, and it's not right. So I'm looking at my friends, hoping that, like they've all said, you pick up this torch and you run with it. This is your history. Even if you're not from Barona, not native, it is part of history that you have to be aware of. I teach from a platform of empathy, respect for one another, no matter who you are, and it starts with you guys, right? The history of genocide that we've been talking about. 7th graders, you're putting in a plant, a native plant garden at the new Children's Museum in downtown San Diego. That's huge, right? You're bringing the knowledge the Creator gave the people to all of San Diego, all of downtown San Diego. You're keeping this knowledge alive. 8th graders, you're doing artwork at the Museum of Contemporary Art in San Diego, La Jolla campus. Maybe it just hit you today how big this is. The audience you have with your artwork and the message that goes with it, talking about buildings sitting on, literally sitting on human remains. Literally sitting on what was perfect, what was an idyllic life that was all taken away by newcomers, by interlopers. I like Steve's word, interlopers. So genocide just isn't something for adults to talk about. You guys are in this room too, you're in this conversation. You are dealing with the lasting effects of genocide. It's still ongoing. So like Steve said, the 20-minute film we have is just a drop in the bucket. You guys have seen it, we've studied it, we've looked at all the aspects of it. And I hope that it resonates within your heart, because I don't think you can see that film and not be upset with what has happened since the time newcomers arrived. But please go see it, please see it again, come after school, come anytime. Happy to show it to you, happy to share. Thank you for the opportunity to work with the kids, work with the school, share your experience, your stories, your history with all of them so that they can grow and be good people, good community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is it lunchtime for you guys or what? Oh, hey, come on up, Dan. Introduced you to Dan earlier.
Just want to say one last thing and make it real short. That a lot of what was discussed today, that's about preservation, preserving history and preserving connections to this land. And there's a lot of ideas about what being Indian or Native, Kumeyaay or what have you, well, what goes into that, ideas about it. But really, your ultimate power is your responsibility to this land, is your connection to it. It's not a status or enrollment or per cap or anything like that. Your power is the connection to the land and the responsibility. So the songs and the stories, the creation, that's what it's trying to tell you about. Try to keep that going, that connection, and preserve it for you and for the future. It's responsibility, so I just want to say that, make that clear. Thank you.
Gonna close it out now. Stops. That doesn't mean you can not think about it or carry on. You've been told, the youth, the teachers, you cannot say, educate me. Or you can, but you'd be a fool. And none of you, to me, look foolish. Got a lot of hope. Got a lot of, when I see young people attending school. And by the way, one of the effects of this, they went back years later and talked to some of the areas that, we'll call it a village for lack of a better word. What was that like? Two of the eldest, it was so horrific. It was so hard. Every day I got up, it was so hard. I didn't know what was wrong. I could not put my finger on it. I was so sad. My home, my land was sad. A year later, they figured out that they could not hear their children. They couldn't hear them laughing. They couldn't hear them playing. They couldn't watch them walking. They couldn't see them with their dogs. Those elders were so, what is that, melancholy? Were hurt. Were hurt. And when they came back, half of them, or majority of them, did not know who their elders were, or did not. If they even came back, some of them never even made it back. They don't know what happened to them. They're finding graves now. It's now coming to a point. They're mentioning it big time in Canada. Canada, they're saying, hey, we found these graves. We're going to find all these kids in Canada. Not here. You don't hear or see it in the United States. I wonder why. Look at it. Know it. So you see it. And when it comes to your time, if it happens again, you'll say, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm not dirty. You're not cutting my hair. I'm not running from you. Don't have to do that anymore. You've been great. Not chewing you guys out, just letting you know. You've been great. Thank you and your teachers for bringing you here. Ready? You guys that can dance, can you come and help us out? Or you don't have to. All right, thank you guys for coming. Be safe. Have a good rest of the day.